didn't know how to, because our whole emphasis was getting an education, getting a job, and then getting out of the house. So that was our thing.
And you were the second of 10.
Second oldest of 10, right.
Right. Everybody, we're having a reasonably spontaneous conversation with Andrea Dawson. Welcome. Thank you. We'll come in and enjoy this because we're going to have some music and we're going to have some fun, and it'll be just the two of us.
Cool.
All right. So this is where you were growing up, and then so in your adolescence, I mean, did you sports was a metaphor for you, right? I mean, you got involved in sports and played basketball, right?
Right. We played basketball. It was a small country school, and so it was during the 70s, and it was leading outside of the civil rights movement. And so in our school, we demanded that we had a girls' basketball team. And so we were the first. This
is Title IX, right?
Yeah,
when it first came.
Right.
What was your consciousness of the civil rights movement? What were you? Was it talked about at home? What were you? Tell me about the experience.
Well, we were. Since we were really out in the country, we didn't really, other than experiencing stuff over top of, Black people, period. In our little town, there was not a whole lot of people, period.
Yeah.
But so I didn't really feel the effects of racism as much as the older people did. And so, but by that time, Black people had become more powerful, and they're speaking out, and then they're demanding of rights and so forth. And so that's whenever I came of age.
Right.
Was during that time. And I remember the transition from civil rights as a young girl. I remember seeing marches on TV, and I remember when Martin Luther King was killed, and, John F. Kennedy and those ones. And I remember the family being afraid, know, for what the future would hold. But they were also felt powerful.
Did you know that you wanted to be a professional singer? And how did that come about?
Well, I think that because I had a really bad speech impediment growing up, so I was a really bad stutterer. So the only time that I could find release was through music. And also to have other people feel something. So I remember my very first taste of any music or singer that touched me was Mahalia Jackson in Imitation of Life. Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember as a little kid watching that, and I remember Mahalia Jackson singing, and I looked around the room, and all of my aunts and my mom and everybody was crying, and they just, were feeling that. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's what I want to do. And so from her on, I tried to imitate the way she sang. I tried to imitate the way Aretha Franklin sang, and anyone that sounded like they could touch, people. And so that's the type of singer that I've always wanted to be.
And welcome because you are.
Thank you.
That song you were playing about life and about being, could you play that for us now?
Sure, I will.
I would love to hear the full version, because this is a treat. Listen to this.
So this song was written from a song game that I was in, and I forgot even what the title was that we were supposed to use, but I call it This Is the Youngest I'm Gonna Get. Everyone my age is an adult, I surmise. I've been walking around here with my adult disguise, wrinkles indicating where my smiles have been. Wouldn't trade my face to be 18 again, but now time is running out, y'all. No need to tread lightly, I'm not gonna stop. Time is gonna have to fight me, though my body gets tired. I ain't done yet, 'cause this is the youngest that I'm gonna get. Now life gets mighty special when there's a less of it to waste. At least to me, that's what I found is the case. Never too old to start a new goal. Go ahead, be the extreme and follow your dreams. Cause now time is running out, y'all. No need to tread lightly. I'm not gonna stop. Time is gonna have to fight me. Though my body gets tired, I ain't done yet. Cause this is the youngest that I'm gonna get. Now the longer I live, the more beautiful life becomes. More beautiful life becomes, the shorter it runs. Fountain of youth is in new skills to master. I gotta learn from all of my mistakes faster. And time is running out, y'all. No need to tread lightly. I'm not gonna stop. Time is gonna have to fight me. Though my body gets tired, I ain't done yet. Cause this is the youngest that I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get. That I'm gonna get. And that's the truth.
And that is the truth.
Yeah, I just started doing the singer-songwriter thing since I've been in Austin, but most of my performance is in blues.
I am so glad that you're doing that.
Really?
Because that song, because this song is my life. It gives me, it recognizes my age and my aging, being 70, being at this time in life. At the same time, it honors it, yet it also has this aspirational consciousness to it, Andrea. It's just amazing. I love it. And you're following that song.
Oh,
I mean, not only
definitely.
have you done that, but tell me what you are doing now. You have brought soul food and vegetarianism and brought the two to the table and said, let's play together and be nice.
Yes, and I think it's
What
perfectly
happened there? What was
logical.
that? Exactly. Tell us about that, and about this part. And these are like chapters of Andrea Dawson's story.
Yes, it is.
And this is another chapter, but it also blends and harmonizes with the rest. So tell us about the chapter.
Well, I started considering vegetarianism a while back, but I didn't really understand it, you know, but I was having some digestive issues, and I thought, well, maybe if I just cut meat out, maybe I'll just see if I feel better.
Sure.
And so I said, all right, I'm just going to try this for 1 week. So the 1 week, the first day, you know, I ate like my favorite vegetables, and I love vegetables, and I've always have, but I've always felt like, you know, something was missing if I didn't have meat.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So the first week went by, and the second week went by, and the third week, and I never did like miss meat, you know, so I was perfectly fine. And I continued on that path the same way, and I started to develop, you know, different recipes for some of my favorites that I thought, well, if I give up meat, I'm never going to have this particular dish again.
Right.
And
Like
I
what?
found out that, well, one of them is my favorite thing in the world. My mother makes the best is fried cabbage. Because we're from the Northeast in Pennsylvania, and so there was a lot of Slovakian, you know, dishes that
Absolutely.
we had also. And so fried cabbage was something that I was going to miss, because you start off with frying a pound of bacon, you know. That was the very first step.
Yes.
But I found a butter substitute, a vegetarian butter substitute that had a little bit of garlic flavored in it. And I put the bacon, and it's absolutely fabulous. It's
Wonderful.
one of my biggest sellers at the food
But
store.
how did you then decide, okay, now wait a minute. I'm going to go from this idea, now we're going to make, I'm going to make this and share this with the world, like you do with your song.
Well, that one was happenstance. I didn't, it was never a dream of mine to have a food truck.
Of course.
So
Who-
it just happens, yeah. So whenever I started to eat vegetarian, I was looking for a vegetarian soul food, and there was only one in Austin, but they were never open. It was a mother and daughter thing, and she actually lived in Houston, and she was only open up while her daughter was here. And once she graduated, then they slowly shut it down. But next door was an African food truck, Wasato. And so I used to eat there because he had greens and he had black-eyed peas, and it was stuff that I recognized. And then I went there this past summer, and he says, well, I'm happy you stopped by today because it's my last day. Yeah, so he says, if you're the only one who wants to buy a truck, let me know. So I took a picture of us and did our little selfie, and I said, if anybody's interested in buying a food truck, Wasato is selling his. I wish I could invest in it.
Sure.
And so a friend of mine from Dallas and said, hey, are you serious about investing in that food truck? Because I will invest in it for you. And so they backed me. And well, it has been very interesting because it's been a discovery for me. Like, first of all, whenever you get the food truck, it's not, it wasn't outfitted for me because it was African food and he was using different ways of cooking. So, well, first of all, it was the construction of the truck. So I had to learn how to use sanders and paint and all those types. And I was like already way out of shape, like way, because I was very sedentary other than, some gigs here and there. So this was a big adventure for me to try and get the truck up and running. And so I decided that, I wasn't going to hide this. I put it on Facebook every day, no matter what I did, I put it out there. So a lot of people came along with me on the journey. They saw me struggle. They heard about me like changing up paints, and I decided to put out what color should I paint this or what wallpaper. I had them vote on it. So a lot of people came along with me on the journey. And so those are my like diehard customers. And some people still will come by and go like, I saw the very first post that you were out there when you walked through and you didn't have electricity. And so, it was all out in the open. And after getting the truck done and having a lot of friends stop by, a lot of people donated so many things, all type of cooking utensils. And then I put a Amazon wish list, and I just had people like, if you want to help out, you can, and they bought everything on my wish list.
So what has it taught you about yourself, Andrea, this experience of building this from scratch and going out?
Well, the biggest thing was whenever I talked with my therapist about it, and I had misgivings about it, because once I got the truck constructed, and it was like a big, show just getting the truck done, and then it was like, well, I guess I actually have to go and do this.
Well, that was.
I guess
you mean I have to?
I have to go cook now? I just wanted to do the truck part. So I was telling her, I said, well, my thing is really, I'm a musician and I write songs and I entertain people. So, this is, not really my thing. And she just looked at me and says, well, you're allowed to have two things. And I thought, well, I guess I can. You can have more than one thing. And so that's whenever I was like, okay, so I can have more than one thing. Because I always thought, if you were a musician, that's who you are and that's your persona.
Your identity,
Yeah, your identity. But then I was like, well, I can be a cook and a food truck owner.
Yeah.
And so, so I came into being whenever she told me that day.
Do you have something else to play with? Play some other song of Andrea Dawson that because I'm so hungry to hear your voice.
Thank you.
I'm hungry to come by your food truck too, but I want more voice tonight.
Well, let me see. This is a song. I was wondering which songs I were going to play, but this one is one that I joked that I wrote this for my brother because he had moved in with me and he wouldn't get off my sofa and go get a job. So I wrote this one about him. You're going to have to get out the house and move around.
All right.
It's called Move Like Somebody.
Good.
When you follow your passion, you gotta go where it may lead. Work hard each and every day. Keep trying 'Cause you can get anything that you want out of life, but you just can't get it sitting down. You gotta move like somebody. You gotta groove like somebody. Take a chance like somebody. Make demands like somebody. You gotta walk like somebody. You gotta talk like somebody. You gotta move like somebody. You gotta groove like somebody. 'Cause you can get anything that you want out of life, but you just can't get it sitting down. But now that you have made it, you didn't make it here all alone. Help the next one up the ladder. You gotta pass your knowledge on. Don't let nobody turn you around and take away your dreams. 'Cause you can get anything that you want out of life, but you just can't get it sitting down. You gotta move like somebody. You gotta groove like somebody. You gotta walk like somebody. You gotta talk like somebody. You gotta move like somebody. You gotta groove like somebody. You gotta walk like somebody. You gotta talk like somebody. 'Cause you can get anything that you want out of life, but you just can't get it sitting down. No sitting down. No sitting down. No sitting down.
And what we're talking about is an how can we make an equality of opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're that grooving part, you say you got to walk, because there's a groove to being part of this process, and then helping the next person.
Oh, definitely.
That we're all in this together.
Exactly. And the food truck was a perfect analogy for that, because it was a friend of mine in Dallas who invested in it for me. And so the thing that she said is that, I've tried to do this for my son, but he doesn't see a value in it, and he just squanders my money away. But I told her that nobody in my life growing up ever had the type of funds to invest in something that I wanted. Even then, like, that was not going to be a possibility for me.
Right.
But she saw that, and she was able to afford that. And so that's what, this is a whole other subject, but that is what the ideal of reparations is about for the Black community. Is that if we were able to get a hand up, that could blossom into something brilliant for so many people who only need a hand up.
Exactly.
I mean, her money getting me into this truck will help me, will help my family, will help my nieces, my nephews coming up behind me, that they would not have had the opportunity had she not given me a hand.
That's what excites me about this opportunity, because we think of this is that if we give someone something, that hand up, that they just take it and then just, but I don't believe that the human being craves purpose. We're wired that way, and that's our job. Our job is to help to unleash that purpose, because they'll do it. They'll do it. The human being will do it if we help to connect them to that purpose.
I agree. I saw a documentary about Africa, and about these aid organizations. You go over there and they buy flour, or they build an institution, or they do those other type of things, which are all wonderful. But they were like, okay, so what if we had all of the money that is contributed towards doing these things and just give people the money?
Exactly.
You know, you give them the money, they build a business that will hire their friends and hire their family and get everybody a foot up. And so that is what is missing.
But one of the things that I think is key in this, for me anyway, is the role of women. Because women, you educate a man and you educate a human being. You educate a woman and she goes back and teaches the rest of the community. This is really where I think that the women and men together are coming and raising. I mean, there is the new, I think it's the president, of Ethiopia, has mandated that 50% of the cabinet are women. So the Minister of Defense is a woman, the first. The Secretary of State is a woman. And so his entire cabinet. So this is making a huge and profound change.
True. And I've always said that as a Black woman, our view from society is different than most people's perspective, because they might be looking at society looking down and seeing every part of it, but we're on the bottom looking up, you know, and we can see the dead branches and we can see where things are broken and where things need to be repaired. But we've not been able to have that opportunity to talk about what we see whenever we look up through the branches, as we're someone on the bottom level and looking up through. And I think that we have a better view of where we need assistance, because we're not talking about just us as women. We're talking about those that we gave birth to and those that need to come up behind us. Yeah. Yes. Whenever I go to meetings here in Austin of the Black organizations, most of it is mostly Black women, and they still come together. There'll be a Black man that is also, you know, just as a very active, you know, powerful person in the organization, but they are normally the person that is the figurehead.
Exactly.
That goes out and, you know, presents it to the press, and so that it can be, you know, have a face to it. That's more powerful than Black women, but that is changing.
It is changing, and it's changing. You are changing. Because of your standing up, and we're seeing Stacey Abrams, and we're seeing Kamala Harris, and we're seeing so many women that are just taking my breath away, that are lifting me up. I mean, I just sat there after the response to the State of the Union, and I listened to Stacey Abrams, and my heart soared. I went, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it was just such an exciting. It was just an exciting.
It's a voice that needs to be heard. It really does.
And that's where your voice. I mean, when you were talking about stuttering, and this process of, that's a process of finding your voice. About saying who you are, about where your power is, and where we're getting a chance to be able to together form this more perfect union. You know, where do you see it? Where do you see the country today? Are you seeing healing? Are you seeing opportunities? What's your sense? I mean, I know I'm asking too broad of a question. I just pick someplace in there and help me to talk about it, because I need to.
Well, I think that a lot of us see it the same way, that there is a vast dichotomy, that you see the country in one way that is igniting the other side. And so that side is getting more powerful, and that you have to believe in it. My whole thing whenever this first started off is that I have always believed in the theory of evolution. And so I can see that it is evolving, and I always thought that evolution will come to the good. And so I see this as a process of evolving the consciousness of the United States. And and I have to say that evolution always takes us to the next level higher. It does not devalue. Because we can see where we came from with slavery and where we are now. And I think that there's an evolution in the country that needed to happen. In every evolution, there's pain, coming through. But there's
a backlash and the staggering as we're moving forward. But it's the arc.
It's the arc. It always comes through, and that's what on my Facebook post I was always positive that this is going to work out because that's the way history has always worked out. There's going to be some pain on the way there, but I think it'll always work out. I think that we need to be honest about, some of the issues that are happening in the country. And
Exactly.
I think this is where the rubber meets the road, is that we're either going to be honest or we're going to continue to sweep things under the curtain. And I think a lot of people are now getting to that point where they're telling their truth.
Yes, I agree, and that's what I'm about. That's what I want to do, is to have, because I believe that if we have conversations,
exactly, yes,
with one another, and we meet one another, my optimist, my soul says is that there will be healing there, because once I recognize myself in you. I can be more peaceful about it. I can see who I am, and I can see in you. I can see my aspirations, and I can see my tenacity, and I can see my compassion, and I can see my strive for social justice. I can see all that in you, and I can go, well, I can't recognize it in you if it isn't in me too, and so I can grow that too.
Exactly, and it's painful the other way around. As far as this growth is that not everybody's coming along.
No.
So it is like, that is something about Facebook, is that you can see where people are, what their mind is. You know? And so people that I've known and I've loved all my life, and they just don't get it. And it's like, and I'm not able to convince them otherwise. And so that is very, very, very sad.
Yeah.
That some people you either have to cut and let go and just understand that they are not going to come along, that they are stuck in an old mode of thinking, and it's very unfortunate, but